The action takes place in the Empire of Asatria, where there is a struggle for the throne and fairy tale creatures live. A horse-drawn carriage travels through the forests of Asatria. A certain golden-haired girl, Irenia Flores, blames herself for being the bastard of the wealthy Flores family and for not being able to make it to the meeting. The main character is the legitimate heir of the Holy Cross, the master of the Light Dragon, and the protector of Asatria, Crown Prince Caesar. The protagonist is cursed. He constantly suppresses the dragon blood in himself. The prince is waiting for his consort, the princess, the golden-haired girl, but she is delayed on the way. The security guard suddenly announces that the girl has arrived and asks for respect. Caesar, a courageous brunette with dark brown eyes, waited for the girl for 2 whole years. There is a war going on in his kingdom, and the only thing that kept him going was his meeting with a girl. Our heroine is Princess Irenia Len, a beautiful and gentle blonde. The prince is very much looking forward to meeting Irene. The whole war was for her sake. The doors open, and a figure in a red robe appears. A shadow of disappointment touches Prince Caesar's face. This is not the one he was expecting. Long gold-red hair falls to the floor and is styled in neat curls. It is not Irenia who appears before him, but another girl, more cunning. Prince Caesar is disappointed and menacingly asks where his consort is. The girl smiles innocently and asks him what he is talking about. His faithful Giovinetta is here. The prince does not listen to Giovinetta, Irenia's half-sister. He draws his sword from its sheath. The young man asks more furiously where Irenia is and why they are foisting an impostor on him. At this time, Irenia is crying. Sitting in the carriage, she will not see her prince. We are told about Irenia's past. She is a bastard of the Flores family. She even limps and is treated like a servant. We are also told that the damned Prince Caesar wanted to see her. The curse of the light, inherited through the mixed blood of the dragon and the royal family, began to manifest. The lame bastard and the cursed prince are the perfect couple. Irenia was happy with him. That's all she wanted in life. According to the order, the first prince of Asatria, Caesar Fiore, went to war against the United Empire and the demi-humans. Having learned about this, the girl tries to dissuade him from this idea. She begs him not to go to war. He could die there. But the young man promises her that he will definitely return to her. The girl begs him not to go to war. He could die there. In addition, the young man abandoned her when he had a chance to return to a normal life without the curse. For 2 whole years, the unfortunate Irenia wrote letters to Caesar, but they did not reach him. The cunning Giovinetta found out about their affair and lied to Irenia, saying that the prince loved her. Irenia cries very bitterly. But who needs a girl who is also crippled? She would rather remain broken than hear such news. Her dreamed future with Prince Caesar is ruined. The carriage in which the girl is riding suddenly breaks down. Irenia is thrown back hard and hits the wall of the carriage hard. She asks the driver what's going on, and he shouts that they are being attacked. The girl screams and asks who attacked and what is happening. The driver wants to check, orders the girl to stay inside, but dies. The driver fights with the last of his strength against the bandits, protecting Irenia. The girl thinks that the criminals are targeting the crown or her, due to the intrigues of the royal family and her relatives. She is very scared. She does not want to die in the forest like that. Irenia believes that she must live. The strongest survives. Irenia runs out of the carriage and runs as fast as she can through the forest. The bandits notice her and decide to kill the girl no matter what. The girl runs through the dark forest at full speed, headlong. The girl runs through the dark forest at full speed, headlong. The bandits have almost captured her, and she doesn't know what to do in this situation. Suddenly, a knight appears and kills the bandits with one blow. The girl turns around and looks at her savior. The knight is clad in heavy armor and slowly approaches her. He scares Irenia, but he stands right in front of her. The girl is scared. The girl pulls out a small dagger from under her skirts and screams not to come near her. There is a rumble of thunder, and a bright flash of lightning lights up the sky. The girl squints and tries to make out who her mysterious savior is. The knight stands right in front of her, his face hidden in shadow. Dark hair flutters epically in the wind and sparkles in the lightning. The girl is surprised to recognize a familiar face in her savior. It was the noble Caesar who came to her aid and killed all the bandits. She doesn't understand why Caesar came to her aid. She believes that Caesar has come to witness her end. The action then moves back 3 years to Florence's family castle. They say that a bride who gets married on a rainy day is doomed to tears. But nothing can be done, after all. Irenia's fiancé is a damned prince, a monster. Irenia served the Flores family for many years, like Cinderella. She always suffered the humiliation of Giovanetta, who was like a nasty stepsister to her. Irene always wondered why she was brought into a family and treated like Cinderella. Irenia was born a bastard to Florence and wandered the streets with her mother until she was taken away from her mother. Her mother, Annalisa, later died of the plague on the city streets. Irenia was treated worse than a dog or a servant in Florence's family. Irenia was treated worse than a dog or a servant in Florence's family. Then one day, cold and dark, her stepmother called her to her. The poor girl is informed that she has been chosen as a marriage partner for Caesar. Her stepmother tells her that Florence's family produces empresses for the royal family. Now the girl understands that she was brought into the family so that she would be for a marriage union. Now the girl understands that she was brought into the family so that she would be for a marriage union. The family's eldest daughter, Giovanetta, was not yet engaged, but the fragile Irenia was sent to be torn to pieces by the prince monster. The first Prince Caesar was always sickly and rarely appeared at celebrations. His mother, Empress Adelaide, committed suicide. The imperial family participated in the negotiations to marry the prince, but it all ended in failure. 4 brides died immediately. They want to get rid of Irenia, believing that Prince Caesar will kill her like those women. She asks with horror if she must become the prince's consort. The stepmother mockingly tells her that she will become the prince's consort. A simple, dirty girl. The cause of the princess's death was not determined, but it is said to be due to the prince's curse. Marriage to such a prince, who brings death, is a death sentence. Marriage to such a prince, who brings death, is a death sentence. The woman's serpentine words that she will become the prince's wife. The monsters do not console Irenia. Irenia understands that she is being sent to her death, to be eaten by a monster. It is as if she is being urged to drink poison from a poisoned cup. The stepmother is pleased with the answer that Irenia submissively accepts her fate. Irenia says that she will gladly marry the first prince. A fleeting change in status. How can our heroine refuse such a thing? So, soon, Irenia packs her things and is instructed by her stepmother. The stepmother gives the girl a letter, which says that Irenia is the prince's consort. Irenia wants to become the prince's wife. This is certainly her decision, even if it leads to her death and consumes her. Irenia sits in the castle, in a wedding dress, and waits for the prince. She knows that the prince rarely shows himself in public anymore, but she couldn't imagine that she would be hosting a wedding with his representative. Irenia is not very happy with the wedding that took place, but there is a plus. They didn't conduct a full security check, and she brought in a dagger. Irenia thinks about how she can kill the prince, but then the doors open. She is ready to kill the prince. There is determination in her eyes. But Irenia's resolve suddenly fades when she sees him. Irenia sees guards carrying a cage. Irenia sees guards carrying a cage and wonders what it is. His Highness, Prince Caesar, sits in a cage. The girl is informed that the prince has been given a sedative so he won't eat her. The prince is placed on the bed and falls unconscious. The guards bow to the girl and leave, leaving her alone with the prince. She screams at them to wait and not leave her alone. The guard closes the door in an epic manner and tells her that the drug's effect is wearing off, and the prince will wake up soon. The door closes, and the princess now faces her wedding night with the beast prince. She doesn't understand and doesn't know what she should do. She wasn't told how it happens. Irenia believes that treating the prince like an animal is unfair. She slowly walks up to him and looks at his face in amazement. Outwardly, he is no different from an ordinary person, but something makes the girl shudder with horror. She looks at her betrothed with horror, like a monster. It's night. The rays of light penetrate through the window of the cathedral where they are. The young man looks like a human, except for his clawed paw. Its paw is covered with black and shiny scales, like a lizard. The young man snores, but then slowly comes to his senses. He opens his eyes in horror and jumps up screaming. The young man sits up on the bed with a jerk and looks around. Sweat is pouring down his face and he feels terrible. A bright clap of thunder illuminates the room with a pillar of light. The prince screams in pain throughout the room they are in. He rises to his feet with an unsteady gait and moves around the room. The girl manages to hide behind the wall in the room. She barely holds back a scream and tries not to breathe, looking at the prince. The monster. She is scared. She can barely contain her fear. The prince turns everything in the room upside down. A strong hurricane is gathering outside the window. Rain is pounding. The princess hears the prince stop walking like that and thinks that the sedative has run out. But suddenly, she freezes from the fear that envelops her. The prince found her in the room and now stands contemplating her. His eyes are bloodshot, and there is a thirst for murder in them. Irene feels uneasy and looks at him in horror. She remembers the mocking whispers of the courtiers. In front of her is a dagger, like in the fairy tale about the Little Mermaid. It was as if Giovanetta, who had given her the dagger as a wedding gift, was standing before her. Giovanetta leans over to the frightened girl and asks her if she is happy with the gift. She tells Irene that it would have been better if she had not been raped by the monster, but had killed herself. The girl felt uneasy about what they said. She thinks that she will either die at her own hands or at the hands of a monster. She remembers the words of Giovanetta, who mocked her. Irenia takes out a dagger and points it at the prince. She knows one thing: she never gave up. So this dagger will not kill her. But the prince, piercing his heart. The girl screams for Prince Caesar not to come near her, otherwise she will kill him. She looks shocked when Caesar speaks to her. Caesar asks her in surprise why she asks him not to come near. The girl defends herself from Caesar. He scares her. Caesar gets too close to Irenea, and she is terrified of him. His handsome face freezes a few centimeters from the dagger. Irenea is horrified. She almost stabbed Caesar. Caesar and she stood frozen opposite each other, looking at each other. Caesar suddenly feels ill, and streams of sweat run down his face. He begins to roar and growl hysterically, like a trapped animal. Irenea tries to understand what's wrong with him. The young man falls to his knees and clutches his head with his hands. The girl understands that he is terrified and wonders why he is so scared. She desperately tries to understand the reason for his fear. Deafening peals of thunder are heard through the windows of the cathedral. Irenea asks the young man if he is afraid of thunder. The boy grabbed his head and covered his ears in despair so as not to hear the thunder. When he looks at Irenea, Caesar resembles a baby. Irenea doesn't know what to say, looking at this face. She is amazed that a cruel man trembles so much at the sound of thunder. The young man squints at the bright light that suddenly illuminates the room. Irenea's gentle hand gently touches his handsome and wild face. Caesar's cat-like eyes widen. Irenea thinks that in front of her is more likely a frightened animal. She gently strokes his hair and tells him that everything will be okay. Irenea believes that if she continues to calm him down, everything will be fine. Caesar and Irenea stood frozen opposite each other, fear giving way to curiosity. Caesar gets back on all fours and starts growling. His black clawed paw grows larger and larger. The girl is terrified. She screams at Caesar to calm down. Her gaze falls on the dagger that lies next to her. She decides to pick up the dagger and see if she will kill Caesar. But Caesar's clawed paw intercepts her little hand. Caesar falls on her, knocking Irenea to the floor. His mouth opens, and he lets out a guttural growl. Caesar instantly becomes furious and is ready to pounce on her. Irenea watches in horror as black scales spread across the prince's body. She realizes with horror that his paws have pinned her firmly to the floor. Caesar leans over her hand with the dagger cut. Irenea imagines that he is going to eat her now. The man leans closer and closer to the bleeding cut. He pinned her to the floor like a beast and wouldn't let her get up. His hot tongue touches the bare skin of her hand. Small, sharp teeth sink into her wound. Irenea tries to stop Caesar, who licks her wound. Irenea notices that Caesar's form has changed. Caesar's form has changed. He now looks more like a human. Irenea tries to understand why Caesar has become the same. She gently touches his blood-stained cheek. He wipes away the blood. Caesar's lips stretch into a smile. She realizes that he is not a monster, but rather a human being sitting in front of her. Caesar stretches out blissfully and lies on her lap. He fell into a deep and peaceful sleep after what he had done. In Irenea's opinion, he was behaving strangely and would hardly have done something like that to her. Irenea suggests that perhaps the prince is in the same situation as she is. The prince sleeps sweetly. You can see his silky black hair, his courageous and wild face. He resembles a cat curled up on his owner's lap. Irenea is happy that she is not dead, but alive. Irenea survived and was not eaten. She tamed the monster. Notre Dame Cathedral, where they are located, is illuminated by sunlight. The door slowly and creaks open. The guards enter the room with trepidation, thinking that they will see corpses again. One of the knights looks at Irenea in surprise. The guard is shocked by what happened to their prince. The knights see a surprising picture. Their prince monster is sleeping soundly. and Irenia makes a gesture for them to be quiet. The knights come closer. They look at Caesar in surprise. Prince Caesar bristles sharply. He is ready to fight. Irenia asks him to calm down and not attack the guards. The girl pounces on her betrothed from behind to calm him down. She tells him that she will not allow Caesar to suffer any longer. She asks Caesar if he will move. He says yes. Irenia conquers the prince at first sight. Irenia says that the prince is not a monster, and he will not be alone anymore. Caesar is shocked. No one has ever spoken to him so kindly. The guards leave the cathedral, leaving them alone. The guards leave the cathedral, leaving them alone. The guards leave the cathedral, leaving them alone. Meanwhile, a hand in a checkered glove reaches out to the hibiscus. The maid informs the red-haired lady that Irenia and the prince had a successful wedding night. The maids bowed before the empress. They await her orders. The black fabric of the noble lady's dress rustles. The beautiful, fatal woman in the picture is Empress Cornelia. The maid tells her what happened between Caesar and Irenia. Cornelia was the emperor's mistress and received the title of empress after the death of Caesar's mother. Her son, Matthias, was born a bastard, and it took years for him to be recognized as the emperor's legitimate grandson. The maid remembers that the princess also has a past like the prince. The woman states that they will need a palace to live in since they are already married. She points to the maid and tells her that they should give them the Beryl Palace. A shadow flickers across the maid's face. She understands that she is up to no good. A woman gracefully cuts the pomegranates that are on her table. She asks the girl's name, and her hands furiously cut the pomegranate when she hears it. Cornelia tells her maid that Irenia will not live long in the castle. The red-haired empress's lips spread into a sinister smile. She orders the maid to bring Irenia to her palace, and they drink together. One of the servants looks at Irenia in shock, calling what happened to the prince a miracle. He is amazed that in front of him is a descendant of Flores. Irenia realizes that everyone around her wanted her dead. The servants remove the clothes that have drops of blood on them. Irenia remembers how Caesar's tongue caressed her skin. Looking at the sheets, she understands that now no one can deny the legitimacy of the marriage. Later, Irenia is brought to the empress's palace. In front of Irene stands a gray castle with shabby plaster. The oak doors creak in the wind, creating an eerie sound. The maid tries to explain to her that everything happened too suddenly. She politely asks Irenia if she likes the residence. Irenia is silent and does not know what to answer the servant. Irenia smiles creepily and replies that she likes the residence. She bows and asks the astonished maids to thank her for the queen's care. Cornelia's maid coldly says that she will convey everything to the empress. Inside there is decoration. A chandelier with a bunch of cut-out engravings hangs. Irenia falls onto the bed under the malachite canopy. Irenia breathes heavily. It took all her courage to fight back against the servants. She remembers the maid looking at her, hoping that she would not like the gloomy residence. Irenia realizes that despite all this, there are intrigues in the palace. But compared to the treatment in the Flores house, all this is bullshit. The door to the bedroom opens, and a maid comes in. She wants to wash Irenia. Irenia gets up from the bed in surprise and looks at the maid. Irenia hastily says that she can handle it herself and doesn't need help washing. The maid leaves, saying that she understood everything and will not disturb her mistress. Irenia sighs and looks at her leg under her dress. A swollen bruise is reflected on her graceful leg. Later, a delicious dinner awaits Irenia. Chicken with bread, lemon pie, fried trout. The girl sits at a long table filled with food. Irenia asks where Caesar is and is told that he will come soon. The maid informs her that she and Caesar will live in the Malachite Palace. Irenia believes that the prince will be a support, even if he is treated like an animal. Suddenly, she is stunned. The prince enters, and she is ready to meet him. The girl greets him joyfully, calling the name of her beloved. But her gaze is met with massive chains entangling the prince. On the prince's face is a mask that is very similar to the mask from the anime Tokyo Ghoul. The prince himself is masked and in chains, like Hannibal Lecter from The Silence of the Lambs. The princess asks sternly what is wrong with him and says that he cannot be treated like that. The prince is wearing a mask, and he is grinding his teeth together. His hand, transformed into a clawed paw, breaks free from its chains. The prince breaks the chains, and the guard shouts for everyone to move away. Caesar breaks the chains and attacks the guards. They chain him to the floor with iron chains and try to restrain him. The girl rushes to Caesar. She is horrified by what they are doing to Caesar. Caesar's mouth is gagged with a rag soaked in gas in order to knock him out. Caesar's powerful and muscular chain strains. Caesar is weakening, and the chain is tightening around him. He collapses to the floor, losing consciousness, and the chains wrap around his muscular body. The guards tie him up tighter and tighter, especially his back. The girl looks in horror at Caesar, limp under the chains. She doesn't understand how such terrible things can be done to Caesar. The guard warns the girl that she better not touch the muzzle and chains. He hands something to the girl, something sharp and yellow. The girl looks in horror at what the prince gives her. The guards leave, leaving the girl and Caesar alone. The girl is scared. Is Caesar's animal nature really making itself known? She reaches out to Caesar, who is wearing a mask and chains and resembles a BDSM callboy. There are new, fresh wounds on Caesar's face. He didn't have them this morning. The girl looks at Caesar's manly face and wonders what kind of muzzle this is. She doesn't understand how the poor prince can be in such a state. She was given some sliced raw meat and tongs for him. Irenia is horrified by the way the prince is treated by his servants. She pulls the meat through the mask with tongs. Irenia remembers how she was treated when she was a servant. Irenia remembers how she was treated when she was a servant. Irenia looks at the prince, and she is furious about it. Caesar slowly comes to his senses, and the girl worries about him. She tells the young man that she will free him now. Irenia is warned that the chains must not be removed. Caesar, all beaten and tied with chains, sits before Irenia. She moves her hand towards his muzzle with the intention of removing it. Caesar growls like a beast, and Irenia calms him down. She touches the muzzle on his neck and opens the lock. Irenia meets Caesar's gaze, and he growls. She reassuringly tells Caesar that everything is okay now. Caesar begins to moan, and Irenia does not understand what is wrong with him. Caesar roars. A wave passes through his body, and black scales appear. Black scales spread all over the body like a plague. He stands up and breaks the chains with force. The girl is terrified of him. She remembers the guard's advice that she shouldn't touch the chains and muzzle. She remembered being handed a mysterious bottle that she was supposed to throw to the prince if things got worse for him. Irenia looks at the bottle. She makes a decision. The prince's clawed hand, covered in black scales, reaches towards his face. Irenia decides to use the vial to save her life. In her hand, the blue bottle that was given to her shimmers. Caesar looks down at the fork holding him back. His gaze becomes bloodshot, his pupils become cat-like. The girl tells him that everything is fine, but Caesar hears voices. He loses control of himself and scratches the girl until she bleeds. Caesar looms over her in an orangutan pose, and the girl backs away from him. Caesar now resembles a wild beast. He has lost control of himself. Irenia looks at him in horror. She is scared looking at him. She believes that if she uses the potion, she will be no different from the people who tortured Caesar. She remembers how Caesar was attacked by guards. Irenia winces in pain as blood flows from her scratch. The scratch is deep and thick blood is pouring out of it. Irenia remembers how Caesar attacked her and what happened last night. She remembers how Caesar calmed down after taking a sip of her blood. She makes a difficult decision to stop the dragon. Her wounded hand reaches out to Caesar, who turns into a dragon. She bravely asks if he wants blood. Caesar growls, and Irenia looks at him with fear. A trickle of blood slowly flows from her graceful hand. Caesar flies up to her very quickly, and she is scared. Caesar bends over her hand, and his sharp teeth touch her wound. The girl is shy. She has never been in such a situation. Caesar, transformed into a dragon, drinks her blood greedily. He bends over her and drinks her blood more and more tenderly. Irenia understands that the young man can only calm down with the help of blood. Caesar turns into a man, and in the girl's head, there are thoughts that no one sees them. She removes her hand and asks him to stop. Suddenly, the atmosphere between them changes. Caesar brings his face close to Irenia and is too close to her. Suddenly, Caesar falls on Irenia's shoulder. Then, Caesar begins to sniff her shoulder and touch her skin. Irenia blushes and asks Caesar to stop, but he does not listen. Caesar's lips are a few centimeters from Irenia's neck. Irenia is in shock, because Caesar's further actions are something else. He falls on her and knocks her to the floor. His tongue begins to touch the neck and lick it. Everything is like in an erotic novel. Irenia asks Caesar to stop, but he continues to lick her. His leg presses into Irenia's groin, pinning her to the floor. Caesar actually threw her to the floor and bit into her neck. Irenia blushes and squeals for Caesar to stop, but Caesar doesn't stop and presses her harder to the floor. He pulled away from her and asked in surprise why it had to stop. Irenia, with tears in her eyes, asks Caesar not to do this again. Caesar is surprised. He never even thought of devouring the girl. The girl tells Caesar, who resembles a dog, that she might die. Caesar tells her that he does not want this and will not allow it. She tells him that she doesn't want to kill him. Caesar gently touches Irenia's hair with his muscular hand. He sadly notes that he doesn't want to kill the girl either. Irenia thinks that he does not understand what death is. She gently strokes his silky black hair. The girl pulled away from Caesar, and an awkward pause hung between them. She introduces herself to him as Irenia. The Tsar remembers her name. The girl says that her mother called her Ren for short. Caesar tenderly and growlingly pronounces Irenia's name. And then, blushing, reminiscent of a wild puppy, he smiles at her. Irenia is very surprised by the way the young man behaves. She smiles softly at him, telling him that everything is okay. Irenia tells Caesar that they are now married. Irenia understands that everyone wants her dead. They live in a dilapidated palace, and the Empress doesn't give a damn about them. Caesar's current situation also leaves much to be desired. Irenia declares to a surprised Caesar that she is on his side. She tells him that they are on the same side now. Caesar, like a child, repeats that they are on the same side. Irenia asks him that if knights pester him, he should tell her about it. She says that if there are any more rude guards, let Caesar tell her. Caesar's eyes turn red and he says that's not what he meant. Irenia believes that he speaks more negative words because he went through hell. She holds out her little finger to him and says that she will make a promise. Caesar is surprised. No one has ever spoken to him like that before. Irenia touches Caesar's little finger, and she tells him that it means a promise. Caesar, like a child, repeats the word promise. Irenia hopefully believes that Caesar knows what it is. Caesar smiles sweetly and tells her yes. Irenia realizes that her husband has brain degradation, but she wonders if he understood the promise. There is a dish of carrots and salad on the table. Caesar eats meat with his hands, but Irenia tells him that he should eat with a fork. She shows the uneducated Caesar that he should eat with a fork. Caesar opens his mouth, thinking she will feed him. Irenia understands that Caesar is like a chick and feeds him. Caesar greedily gobbles up the food. Irenia thinks that at this rate, he looks more like a child than a husband. The cedar door creaks and opens slowly. Irenia and Caesar look at the door to see who might be there. Someone's old voice laments how all this can be. An old woman catches them while they are eating at the table. Caesar looks at his grandmother with confusion. Irenia politely asks the woman who she is. She bows politely and asks for forgiveness for the sudden visit. The old lady's name is Mercedes Aronso. She is Prince Caesar's nanny. Being the prince's nurse, she arrived at the palace at breakneck speed. Irenia believes that her grandmother served the late Empress Adelaide. The nanny says that a lot has changed since Irenia arrived here, and she asks how she can treat the prince like that. Suddenly, Irenia realizes that she has gone too far. The nanny cries and says she asks for forgiveness. She had no strength left to stop His Majesty. The nanny always protected Caesar from the attacks of the emperor's mistress. She asks Irenia how she performed the miracle, and Irenia is surprised. The maid says that Caesar never listened to anyone before and rejected all care. The maid surprises Irenia by asking how she communicates with Caesar. Irenia remembers how the prince behaved in her presence. Irenia doesn't know how to say that she calmed him with her blood. She is afraid that nasty rumors will spread about her, that she is involved in witchcraft. As a child, Irenia witnessed a witch trial. Irenia recalls that she was driven around the city and pelted with stones. She was burned slowly until she died. The maid brings Irenia back to reality and asks what is wrong. Irenia tells her that it doesn't matter how she did it. Suddenly, the prince's black paw grabs Irenia by her clothes. He guiltily calls her by name and wants something. Irenia tells Caesar that everything is fine and there is nothing to worry about. Nanny Mercedes draws attention to the relationship between the prince and princess. She cheerfully says that it seems that the prince likes Irenia. She shyly replies that yes, and the nanny is right. Irenia smiles sweetly, and Caesar looks warily at the nanny. Night falls and darkness envelops the castle. Irenia goes to bed in a soft and cozy bed. She remembers how the maid told her that tomorrow she would have tea with Cornelia. Irenia can't sleep at the thought of having tea with the queen. She thinks that they haven't met yet and is worried about how everything will go. Someone's powerful hand grabs the girl by the bare leg. It turns out that Caesar grabbed her by the leg. Irenia covers herself. Caesar touches each of her toes and looks at her. Caesar touches each of her toes and looks at her. Irenia was terribly frightened as she looked at Caesar. She tells Caesar that he should go into the room, but he plays with her fingers. Irenia says that how did he even get in and she can't kick him out. Irenia invites Caesar into her bed, because it is cold all around. Caesar is happy that he will sleep with the girl. Caesar happily jumps into bed with her and settles down next to her. Irenia understands that there is nothing wrong with using the same bed. She and the prince fall asleep under the cover of night, side by side. The prince sits down next to her and strokes her hair. Suddenly, the girl laughs at his touch. She realizes that she hasn't felt anyone's warmth for a long time. Irenia moves closer to Caesar, hugging him. She tells Caesar that they can get some sleep if they hug. Caesar says he agrees with her and blushes. He wants to say something, but Ren is already asleep. Irenia's graceful neck beckons the prince to taste her blood. The prince cannot restrain himself and bends over Irenia's neck. After Irenia and Prince Caesar consummated their marriage, someone was watching them. A certain man asks the servant everything, who says that everything was so. A tall, muscular young man with red hair has plans for Caesar and Irenia. His name is Metis de la Rosa. He is the second prince of Assetria. Fundamentalist conservatives support Prince Caesar despite his unstable psyche. According to Matthias, they need a puppet prince. The demon war came to be dominated by three kingdoms: Assetria, the kingdom of humans, the Helbram forest of the elves, and the stoic iron alliance of the dwarves. The other two monarchs always chose an emperor who suited their tastes. Matissa asks the servant which house Irenia is from, and he replies that she is from the Flores house. Matthias knows that the Flores family has been suppressing the dragon blood for years. The servant informs him that she is the illegitimate daughter of the head of the Flores family. Matthias thinks that this is not surprising, since she is a descendant of Cosimo, and her relatives must be furious that she was given the power, and not her sister. The servant wants to say something, but Matthias stops him. Matthias gets dressed and says that if he had known that the girl had survived, he would have come to her wedding with Caesar. He says that they will probably see each other again soon. A certain servant shouts at a maid and demands that she confess. The maid stole a jewel from Her Majesty. She cries and says it wasn't her. But the maids give her away and surround the thief from all sides. They are doing something to her, something bad. Irenia wakes up all in sweat. She had some kind of terrible dream. She looks at Caesar and thinks that she has had some kind of terrible dream. Irenia is silent, remembering last night with Caesar. When Caesar really closes his eyes, he appears to be a noble youth. Irenia stands up on the bed. Someone knocks on the door. Some maids are looking at her through the door. One of them, with a bun on her head and a stern look, greets Irenia. Another, younger maid, looks angrily at Irenia. All the servants standing at the door look at Irenia. Irenia asks the servants what all the commotion is about. The maids stand at the door and bow to her silently. The one with an angry look looks from under her brows at the servant who allegedly stole the jewel. She senses her fear and looks at her victim victoriously. The girl screams that she saw a servant steal Her Majesty's jewels. The maids decided to get rid of Delphine. That's the name of the guilty maid. Irenia is horrified. She does not understand how the maids could get rid of their friend. Irenia is horrified. She does not understand how the maids could get rid of their friend. She turns to the maid with the bun and demands an explanation from her. That maid with the bun is naturally shocked by Irenia's decision. The maid introduces herself as Elda and says she knows nothing. She says that in the morning, the maid Sarah saw the maid Delphine trying to get rid of the jewelry. Irenia says that now everything is clear to her and a shadow falls on her face. She knew that look in the maid's eyes all too well. She recalls how the maids treated her when she worked in the Flores household. Irenia remembered what a terrible fate had been prepared for her. The daughter of a servant. Irenia remembered what a terrible fate had been prepared for her. The daughter of a servant. She knows that normal people save for retirement and get married. But not her. She goes by the name Flores, and it's much worse than you can imagine. That's why she sees through this deceitful game of the maids. This is a business matter. You can't tell whether the jewel has disappeared or not. She turns to Elda, and she is ready to get rid of Delphine once and for all. Irenia tells Elda that it is incredibly rude of her to blame Delphine when it is Elda's job to look after the jewels. Irenia says where Elda learned manners, since she made a scene at her door. Irenia tells an indignant Elda that she is talking to her now. The maids look at each other in fear. Irenia understands that there is nothing for them to be afraid of. A princess married to a monster. A prince. She asks the maid who sent her, and she says Countess Elphira. Irenia indignantly says, "How dare she defame the good name of Countess Elvira?" Elda is surprised. No one has ever spoken to her like that before. Irenia says that she will personally report everything to Countess Elvira. The maids are frightened. They are afraid of Irenia. Elda screams at Irenia that it was all her mistake, and she didn't mean to. Irenia listens attentively to the frightened maid. She remembers how these snake maids laughed at her. Irenia understands that all her troubles began on her wedding day. The maids apologize to the girl in chorus. They are scared. Irenia loudly and imperiously tells them to get out of here. Irenia looks closely at the maids and notices one of them with a bob. She shudders, looking at her, and comes up with something. She remembers her dream in which everything was wrong with the maids. Delphine, a maid with a bob of chestnut red hair, is crying. Irenia is shocked to realize that she recently had a dream about maids. She turns her gaze to the servants, who don't know where to go. One of them, with ponytails, feels Irenia's gaze. Irenia looks at them with authority and understands how much power she has. She orders another raven-haired maid to go get the guards. Irenia orders the guards to be brought here in a commanding tone. One of the guards immediately approaches her. Irenia points to the maid with pigtails. Irenia asks what she has in her apron pocket, and she makes excuses that she has nothing. Irenia orders to inspect her apron pocket. The guard roughly grabs the maid with pigtails, and she screams that it is not her. The guard looks into the maid's pocket and is deeply shocked. The stolen necklace comes into view of the other maids. Irenia says that all the maids claimed that Delphine touched the jewels. The maids begin to justify themselves to the angry Irenia. Irenia informs them that theft is a serious crime that must be dealt with severely. She orders all the maids to be taken away for interrogation. Delphine smiles sweetly and thanks the queen for her intervention. Irenia realizes that Delphine would have been in trouble if she hadn't discovered the setup. Irenia locks herself in her chambers after the incident. Irenia isn't sure what's going on, but she knows the top priority. She needs people she can trust at court. The awakened Caesar climbs up to Irenia to understand what happened to her. With his wild appearance, Caesar resembles a wolf. Irenia is glad that Caesar has finally woken up. She gently touches his cheek and he closes his eyes. Caesar exposes himself to Irenia's caresses. Irenia jerked her hand away sharply and stepped back from Caesar. She remembers feeding Caesar meat and thinks about how many injustices he had to endure. She gently touches his cheek and says she will make it right. Caesar is confused about what he did wrong. Irenia believes that for her own sake and Caesar's, she needs to surround herself with good people. She decides to talk to Empress Cornelia. Suddenly, Mercedes walks through the door, and the lovers are distracted by her. Mercedes says that she looked for Caesar everywhere and barely found him. Mercedes looks at the royal couple in surprise. Mercedes notes that Prince Caesar and Irenia look happy. Caesar gently touches Irenia's hand, and she asks him to stop. Mercedes says that she came to give the girl a message. The girl is shocked by the news that the Empress herself is inviting her to tea. Irenia says that she has something to ask Her Majesty. Irenia shocks Mercedes by saying she wants to hire new servants. Mercedes says she heard about the recent incident and is glad Irenia sent them away. Irenia asks Mercedes if all her servants are like this. All the servants here serve Madame Elvira. Irenia doesn't understand how one can treat people like this, referring to Caesar. Irenia doesn't understand what's going on in this castle. She says she has a favor to ask of Mercedes. Irenia tells her that she has no maids here at all. She asks Mercedes to help her and be her maid. Mercedes is happy that Irenia chose her as her servant. Mercedes tells Irenia that she would be only too happy to help her. Suddenly, another maid comes in and tells Irenia that she needs to get dressed. Irenia wonders why Caesar won't go with her, and Mercedes tells her that Cornelia doesn't get along very well with the prince. Caesar immediately bristles and says that he is not happy to see Cornelia. One of the maids is surprised that Caesar has finally spoken. Irenia is surprised that Caesar dislikes Cornelia so much. She categorically insists that Irenia not meet Cornelia. Irenia is in a panic. Is the effect of the blood she gave the prince wearing off? She tells the prince that they need to talk alone. Irenia is left alone with the prince, and she is very afraid of him. Irenia is left alone with the prince, and she is very afraid of him. Caesar leans over her, and his gaze becomes dragon-like again. Caesar leans over her, and his gaze becomes dragon-like again. Caesar leans over her, ready to drink her blood. He licks her tongue just below her neck, and Irenia is embarrassed. Irenia is embarrassed and covers herself from Caesar's tongue. Suddenly, Caesar looks at her, and his gaze is not human. Irenia extends her hand to him so that he can drink her blood. The young man bends over her hand and is ready to drink blood. The young man bends over her hand and is ready to drink blood. Blood falls from the girl's hand as Caesar drinks it. Irenia is surprised by what happens next and feels embarrassed. Caesar drinks Irenia's blood more and more tenderly. Caesar's caresses and poses are reminiscent of a cheap erotic novel. In the morning, Irenia has her hair done, and she should look elegant. The maid asks Irenia if she is ready to put on her gloves. Irenia puts on the glove and believes that it will hide the wounds from Caesar. She also wears a modest outfit so as not to anger the empress. Irenia wears a strict white dress with blue skirts and a bow. Her hair is combed into a bun. Irenia asks Caesar to wait for her, and he is categorically against it. Irenia tells Caesar that she can do nothing. Caesar is categorical. He does not believe Irenia at all. Mercedes tries to talk to Caesar to let Irenia go. Mercedes persuades Caesar to let Irenia go. Irenia tells Caesar that she will return soon. Caesar doesn't believe her that she will return. Irenia runs as fast as she can to meet Cornelia. Irenia runs as fast as she can to meet Cornelia. No one told Irenia where Her Majesty was. They also arranged a meeting in the greenhouse, which is far from the palace. Irenia sees Cornelia's servants lined up in front of her. One of them even laughs at her because she was late. Irenia feels that her leg is twisted, and she herself is in a terrible state. She is told that the princess consort must show respect to the empress. Scarlet hair and scarlet lips, smiling in a grin. At the table sits the most beautiful woman of all women, Cornelia. Cornelia and Irenia look at each other with incinerating eyes. Irenia, despite her leg, greets the empress. Cornelia looks very menacingly at her daughter-in-law. The scene takes place in a greenhouse, where servants are present. Irenia feels severe pain in her leg when she bows. Cornelia suddenly tells her that the radiance of the Holy Cross. Irenia barely gets to her feet, deciding to start a dialogue with the empress. Suddenly, Irenia falls, and someone's hands catch her. It is Delphine who helps Irenia resist Cornelia. Cornelia is adamant and looks at Irenia very menacingly. Irenia shyly says thank you to Delphine. Delphine is embarrassed, but she doesn't say anything to Irenia. Cornelia's faithful servant invites her to approach the empress. Irenia sits down in front of Cornelia on the chair offered to her. Cornelia is beautiful. Luxurious red curls, a dress strewn with stones, and a tame parrot on her hand. Cornelia mockingly asks the girl how life is in the palace. Irenia trembles as the empress's languid voice rings throughout the greenhouse. Irenia doesn't know what to say to Cornelia. She decides to tell the empress one thing about Caesar. Irenia says that this concerns Caesar, and Cornelia angrily orders her to speak. Irenia informs Cornelia that there are servants who seek to hurt Caesar. A blue butterfly lands on the flowers nearby. Irenia reveals that the servants even use chains and a muzzle to restrain Caesar. Cornelia snaps her fingers. She is given a light from a mouthpiece at the snap of her fingers. Irenia coughs from the smoke raised by the empress. Cornelia, having created smoke, resembles a dragon, who threateningly asks the girl what she wants from her. Irenia is surprised that Cornelia doesn't know about Caesar. She puts down her mouthpiece and asks Irenia if she didn't hear her. Irenia tries to object to Cornelia. Cornelia says that human treatment only applies to people. Cornelia suddenly asks Irenia what makes a person human. A pink cockatoo with an orange comb starts screaming at the top of its lungs. Cornelia says that if you want to be treated like a human being, you have to act like a human being. Cornelia asks Irenia if she has ever seen the prince act like a human. Using the example of the cockatoo, Cornelia says that a person should walk on two legs. Then, she says that a person must be able to use tools. And then, Cornelia shows, using the example of cockatoo, that a person should speak human language. Irenia is about to object to the empress listening to her parrot. Cornelia asks if she can tell the difference between a parrot and a prince. Cornelia holds the cockatoo in her hand with her dexterous fingers. Irenia is scared. She thinks that the bird's neck is about to be wrung. Cornelia says that the bird is better than the prince, and she can control it. Cornelia releases the bird from her hands. The bird takes off over Cornelia and Irenia. The cockatoo lands on the table and dives down smoothly. Cornelia tells Irenia that the prince is a beast who would have been better off never being born. Irenia is shocked that Cornelia believes that the beast can be tamed with a whip. Cornelia asks Irenia how she would deal with the prince. Irenia, horrified, says that she would never do such a thing. She remembers Caesar and believes that everything is unfair towards him. Irenia sharply and loudly tells the Empress that Caesar is not a beast. Cornelia looks angrily at Irenia and asks menacingly what she said. And then Cornelia smiles, seeing Irenia's reaction. She laughs sharply, looking at Irenia, who is scared. Cornelia tells Irenia that putting on comedies is the girl's forte. Irenia is angry that Cornelia can laugh at the prince and at her. Irenia speaks angrily, turning to Cornelia. Irenia says that the first prince is naturally different from the others. Irenia says that he attacks others and drinks blood. His left arm becomes reptilian and his eyes become bestial. Traits like Caesar's are called a curse. Irenia worries about the prince, watching him. Irenia believes that there is but that changes the attitude towards the prince. His sweet smile and gentleness make the prince cool. Irenia tells Cornelia that the prince is undoubtedly a man. Cornelia tells her that her concern for her husband is commendable. Cornelia notes that the illegitimate girl will not notice the shortcomings of the feeble-minded peasant. Irenia is shocked by how rude Cornelia is to her. Cornelia doesn't take anyone into account and doesn't consider Caesar a human being. Irenia clenches her fists. She doesn't know how to convince the Empress. Irenia asks Cornelia if the prince starts to act like a human. Will she recognize him? And Cornelia thinks about it. Irenia says that she will teach Caesar manners and how to be a man. Cornelia mockingly tells Irenia that she is shocked that she even sees a human in an animal. The confrontation between Irenia and Cornelia has begun. Cornelia agrees that if Irenia succeeds, she will recognize Caesar as a man. Irenia is shocked that she will be given the queen's blue flame. The blue flame dream is the necklace of the queens themselves, just like in Titanic. Irenia understands that if she gets the necklace, it will mean one thing. The queen said the necklace was a pledge of her support. Cornelia stands up and approaches the princess. Cornelia says that the princess really needs her support. Cornelia leaves, saying that she has time before the summer banquet. Cornelia tells her that she hates liars. Cornelia warns her that if the girl's words are empty words, then the Empress will punish her. Irenia comes out of the greenhouse, and she is clearly tired and upset. Delphine sees someone, and Irenia wearily sinks to the floor. Irenia is met by Matthias, who says that he imagined a warrior, not a fragile girl who tamed a beast. Irenia is met by Matthias, who says that he imagined a warrior, not a fragile girl who tamed a beast. Matthias moves closer to Irenia, who bows to him. Irenia looks exhausted when Matthias sees her. Suddenly, it dawns on Irenia where she has seen that arrogant face. Matthias asks the girl if she is finished with her audience with his mother. Irenia bows and introduces herself to second Prince Matthias. Matthias grabs the girl by the chin sharply, saying that he didn't expect her to be like that. Irenia tells him that she did not give him permission to call her by her name. Matthias tells her that this is all rude and that he will call her his daughter-in-law. Matthias looks at Irenia in surprise, who decides to fight back. Irenia looks at him in horror, seeing his changed face. Irenia says that if that's all, then she's out. The prince's hand suddenly catches Irenia's hand, and he asks her to wait. Irenia did not expect this and steps on her sore foot. Irenia falls into the prince's arms in pain. The prince catches the girl, hugs her and asks her to be careful. Irenia is horrified. She does not love the prince and screams for him to let her go. Irenia is horrified. She does not love the prince and screams for him to let her go. The prince leans over her neck like a vampire thirsting to drink blood. The girl asks him what he has in mind, and he says nothing of the sort. The young man whispers to the girl if the prince knows how to sleep with women. Irenia looks surprised. She doesn't know what to say. Irenia asks in surprise what he said. Matthias tells her that he can see that she has difficulty walking. He orders the servants to bring a stretcher for her. Irenia is horrified by the stretcher that was brought to her. She remembers Matthias telling her that Caesar doesn't know how to sleep with women. Irenia calls Matthias a dirty bastard. Irenia says that she has not experienced such humiliation for a long time. Ren sinks onto the bed and someone calls out to her. Irenia raises her head. She believes that Caesar is near. Irenia realizes that she entered the room alone, and Caesar was not there. She looks at Caesar's rumpled clothes in surprise and asks what he is wearing. It turns out Caesar was under the bed this whole time. Irenia says that they only cleaned where it was visible. Caesar is covered in dust from hiding. Irenia pulls both of Caesar's cheeks in different directions. Suddenly, Irenia begins to laugh at Caesar. Irenia says that Jezar looks very stupid now. In this magnificent palace, Irenia feels alienated glances. Even the Empress and Matthias want to swallow her up. Irenia laughs merrily at Caesar, her only ray of light in the palace. When she sees Caesar, she feels free. Irenia says that she can't just leave him like that, and he's covered in soot. Irenia brushes the dust off Caesar, stroking his cheek. Irenia says that she promised to show a worthy person. Irenia calls old Mercedes, who has been looking for her everywhere. Irenia says she thinks Caesar needs to take a bath. Irenia says she thinks Caesar needs to take a bath. Mercedes suddenly tells her that this is impossible. Irenia asks what's wrong with Mercedes. Mercedes says she'll get the bath ready. She leads His Majesty out of the room. Irenia waves her hand to the young man in a friendly manner. Irenia believes that it is unlikely that anything bad will happen because of the bath. Irenia suddenly hears strange sounds spreading through the corridor. The door opens wide and Irenia blushes. A naked and muscular Caesar appears in the doorway. Water is dripping from his hair and down his body. He is clearly unhappy about something. Caesar suddenly runs up to the girl and hugs her tightly. Irenia is shocked. The naked man certainly didn't hug her. Caesar speaks to Irenia affectionately by her name. Water flows down a mountain of muscle that would make Conan the Barbarian envious. Irenia realizes that the young man is now too close. Mercedes bursts into the girl's chambers and shouts at the prince. Mercedes hands the girl a soft towel to dry herself off. Irenia realizes that the young man hasn't really washed himself yet. Mercedes dries the prince and says that he always reacts this way to a bath. Irenia is shocked by Caesar's antics with the bathtub. Irenia says that even if he didn't wash himself, it's not a big deal. Mercedes says that no one helped His Highness take a bath. Irenia says she will try to wash Caesar. We are shown a bathroom with numerous flasks. Caesar sits in a robe in front of Irenia in the room. Caesar looks like a samurai in this white robe. Irenia tied up her hair and rolled up her sleeves, preparing to wash Caesar. The servant tells Irenia that they will start with water. Caesar bristled when he saw the bucket of water. His clawed hand lunges at the boy with water. Caesar's paw wounded the servant, and water spilled onto the floor. The servant curses when he looks at Caesar today. The servant, bleeding, wants to harm Caesar, which Irenia notices. Irenia orders to stop immediately. Irenia orders the servants to move away from Caesar. The servants stand still and wait for Irenia to tell them. Irenia and Caesar are left alone in the room with Mercedes. Irenia says that not all is well because the servants are offending Caesar. Mercedes suddenly tells Irenia that she now understands how unpopular Caesar is at court. Mercedes says that bathing Caesar is not an easy task, and he does not like it. Mercedes says he'd better take Caesar to his chambers before he catches a cold. Irenia orders Mercedes to stop and wait. Irenia says that she underestimated the scale of the situation, and Caesar needs to be bathed. Mercedes is surprised and tells Irenia that Caesar clearly doesn't want to, but Irenia sharply says that they must bathe him. Silence falls, and only the sound of water can be heard in the chambers. Irenia invites Caesar to come to her, and he slowly approaches. Mercedes, horrified, asks what Irenia is going to do. Irenia abruptly says that Caesar must be bathed, whether he likes it or not. Irenia menacingly declares that she promised to make a man out of Caesar. The maid does not understand the meaning of her mistress's words. Irenia says that Caesar simply needs to wash himself. Mercedes thinks for a long time and realizes that Irenia is right. Mercedes says she is leaving His Majesty to Irenia. Irenia orders her to stop, but she leaves. Irenia understands that after what she has seen, it is difficult to make a man out of Caesar. Irenia believes that Mercedes is the only one who can help her, and she is not counting on her for nothing. Irenia throws a towel over Caesar, and he wipes himself with it. Irenia sits down next to Caesar and kindly asks him why he doesn't like to wash. Caesar shakes his head desperately and shouts that he hates water. Irenia tells Caesar that taking a bath is a very pleasant activity, but Caesar clearly doesn't like swimming in water. Irenia tries to convince Caesar that swimming in water is not so bad. Caesar watches her movements around the bath closely. Irenia guesses why Caesar doesn't like water. Caesar hates water because of the servants who offend him. Irenia says that if he doesn't like the servants, then he should wash himself. The bath is completely ready, and Caesar's ablutions have begun. Irenia collects a handful of water and is ready to wash Caesar. Caesar winces as the water touches his skin. Caesar finds it extremely unpleasant to bathe, especially in this way. His paw is ready to fight back against Irenia. Will he really hurt Irenia? Irenia suddenly realizes that Caesar has not reacted to the servant's blood. She thought that he was drawn to any blood, but apparently not. Irenia says that this time she will move the bucket of water higher. Irenia says it's not all that bad, is it, Caesar? Wet Caesar looks very beautiful and masculine. Irenia realizes that Caesar is too amazing. She thinks he needs to be shown how to wash properly. Irenia suddenly realizes that she needs to show Caesar how to wash himself. Caesar looks very tempting when wet. Irenia abruptly wraps his shirt around him and shouts that he can't sit like that. Caesar looks at Irenia in surprise. He always did this. Irenia says, embarrassed, that he should cover himself when he washes. Caesar says with a serious look that he will obey Irenaeus. Irenia is embarrassed. She needs to be shown an example of how people wash themselves. Irenia realizes that Caesar has not eaten until she has begun. Irenia is embarrassed. She is embarrassed to undress in front of Caesar, but Irenia decides to overcome her shyness and begins to take off her clothes. The clothes slowly rustle on Irenia and slide down. Irenia politely asks Caesar to turn away for a moment. Then, Irenia throws her clothes on the floor. Irenia commands Caesar to turn back. Caesar turns sharply to Irenia. Irenia's long hair is wet and hanging down. Irenia stands in one shirt, which is wet, and everything is visible through it. Irenia doesn't want to look barefoot, and her sore leg hurts so much. Irenia remembered how she tripped as a child and broke her leg. As a child, Giovanetta scolded her that Irenia broke her leg because of her carelessness. Irenia recalls that the servants and her stepsister were indifferent to her, and the girl's father, Gasparo, spent all his time at banquets. Irenia was then locked in a closet, and no one came to check on her. And when everything came to light, it was too late to do anything for her legs. Irenia remembers how she was treated because she was lame. Irenia looks at Caesar and starts a conversation with embarrassment. But Caesar is busy sniffing Irenia's clothes. He turns his gaze to Irenia in surprise. Irenia believes that she does not need to worry about Caesar. She shows Caesar how to properly get into the bath. Her broken leg touches the soft surface of the water. Water splashes out of the bathtub against the backdrop of a pile of jars. Irenia dives into the water and shows it to Caesar. She cheerfully invites Caesar to swim with her. Caesar says that he suddenly feels like swimming too. Irenia splashes Caesar with water from the bath. Caesar is surprised. He has never felt so good before. Irenia laughs merrily at Caesar. He is so cute. Irenia extends her hand to him and invites him to swim together. Water spills over the edges of the brought bathtub. Caesar shakes off the water like a wild animal. Irenia tells Caesar that things are not so bad. Irenia tells Caesar that she likes being clean. Irenia tells him that she too would like Caesar to smell nice. She tips over one of the bottles and offers Caesar a sniff of it. Caesar is all wet, and he happily sighs at the aroma of water and the bottle. Caesar says the bottle has a pleasant smell. Irenia suddenly winces in pain. Soap got into the wound. Caesar notices how much pain Irenia is experiencing. Irenia asks Caesar what happened. He gently takes her hand in his muscular one. Caesar kisses Irenia's soft, silky hand. Irenia thinks that Caesar's movements are aimed at healing his hand. Irenia blushes with embarrassment. She strokes Caesar's head, saying that she is giving him both the disease and the medicine. Caesar doesn't care about anything, as long as he has fun. Irenia sits all wet and looks at Caesar. Irenia sits all wet and looks at Caesar. Caesar is also sitting and he is all wet. Everything is translucent. Irenia understands that even she cannot wash secret places. Irenia tells Caesar that he must now wash himself. Caesar, that bastard, is not happy. He so wanted Irenia to wash him. Caesar catches Irenia with his clawed paw when she wants to leave. Irenia ends up in the water, completely red, as Caesar saw everything. Caesar tells her that he doesn't want her to leave. Irenia tells Caesar that she wants him to wash himself. Caesar is surprised. If he washes himself, he will receive a reward. Irenia tells him that he needs to wash himself. Irenia thinks that she can give Caesar in return. Caesar approaches her and says that she can give it to him. He extends his hand to the puzzled girl. Caesar strokes Irenia's cheek and says that he wants to see her. Irenia is surprised. Does cutie Caesar really want to be petted? Irenia promises him that she will iron him if he washes himself. Mercedes is surprised. What did His Highness do? Irenia tells her that the prince washed himself. If Mercedes could see, Irenia thinks. Mercedes reproachfully tells her that why did she stay with the prince and not take care of him? Irenia says in her defense that she decided to teach him to take care of himself. Mercedes says that Caesar needs to be kept a closer eye on. Irenia is upset that Mercedes thinks this way. Irenia says she will take care of Caesar. Irenia says they have little time to make Caesar human. Mercedes says Irenia is the first one to do this. Irenia says that she will remember the old woman's request to take care of Caesar. Mercedes looks at Irenia and understands that she has firmly decided to make Caesar human. The old woman says that, on the contrary, if Irenia teaches him etiquette. Irenia says that there won't be any problems with this. Delphine is surprised. Will Irenia really be at Her Highness's ball? Irenia asks Delphine to help her with something. It is unrealistic to make Caesar a man in 3 months. Irenia was too self-confident in making a man out of Caesar. During the entire ball, the members of the imperial family do not just sit. They greet everyone and smile. So Caesar will have to make an effort. Irenia entrusts Delphine with training Caesar. Irenia thanks Delphine for her help in advance. Usually, the emperor's clothes are the responsibility of the manager. Delphine tells Irenia that Caesar has no suits. Irenia says that she will find herself a dress from what she has. Delphine says that usually princesses get new dresses before the ball. Suddenly, Delphine is informed that someone has come to Irenia. Irenia is greeted by the empress's maid. Irenia greets Countess Elvira and asks what her business is. Elvira's thin smile does not bode well. Elvira snaps her fingers, and a maid comes up to her. The office doors open, and we see various uniforms and medals. We see lace dresses in different shades. Elvira shows all these outfits and says that they are all gifts from Her Majesty. Irenia is surprised by the gift from Cornelia. Elvira says that isn't Cornelia kind. She is very touched that Irenia is treating the prince. Irenia notes with disbelief that this is very strange support. Elvira says that from this day on, Irenia should contact her if she needs anything. She also says that she believes that Irenia will not fail with Cornelia's support. Irenia looks surprised. What awaits the heroine next? Irenia understands, so this is what the empress means. Irenia asks Elvira to convey her gratitude to the empress. Elvira smiles like a snake and says that she will do so. The guards that Elvira called enter the room. Also, the maids, whom Elvira called, enter the room. Irenia states that they all treat the prince with disrespect. By Irenia's decision, Elvira replaced most of the staff. We are shown the dining room where our heroes are sitting. On the table there is fried trout, salad, and tomato soup. Tamian. As Irenia noted, the food has become much better. Irenia notes that the dinner was always sumptuous, but now it became even better. The perfect setting to teach Caesar etiquette. Irenia orders the maids to come closer. Elderly Mercedes helps the prince with food. Mercedes asks Irenia in surprise what's wrong. Irenia tells her that she can't do everything for Caesar. Mercedes asks in surprise if she shouldn't help the prince. Irenia says that they must teach the prince independence. Mercedes says that the prince rarely gets to eat so well, and he should not hold back. Otherwise, he will become ill. Irenia tells her that from the outside it looks strange. Then Mercedes hands the prince a fried shrimp. But Irenia suddenly grabs Mercedes' hand and scolds her. Mercedes indignantly asks what Irenia is proposing. Irenia is silent, looking at Mercedes. Irenia takes it and approaches Caesar herself. She places a small fork into his powerful hand. Irenia tells him that he needs to learn how to use the devices. Caesar looks at his fork and then abruptly throws it away from him. Mercedes offers to use her help to help the prince. Irenia is against this idea and clearly tells them no. Irenia turns to Delphine, and she is ready to carry out her order. The maid Delphine hands the girl a fork for Caesar. Irenia says that they will repeat this as many times as necessary until Caesar learns how to use the devices. Irenia shows Caesar how to use a fork and knife. Mercedes is shocked by Caesar's eagerness to master the science of etiquette. Caesar throws his fork on the floor again and away. Irenia does not give up and continues to teach Caesar. But Caesar doesn't care. He treats everything with a joke. Mercedes stands and watches all the feeble attempts of Caesar to master the fork. Irenia notes this and asks if Mercedes is okay. Mercedes asks if Irenia really wants to go to the banquet with Caesar. Irenia answers Mercedes' question positively. Mercedes gets angry and says, "Is that really true?" She asks Irenia if everything is being done because of her selfishness. Irenia tells her no and is ready to say epic phrases. Irenia tells Mercedes that this is not the case, and she will train Caesar. Mercedes is delusional, overly worried about Caesar, thinking he will get hurt. Irenia tells her that Caesar must be taught, even if he is wounded. She says that it is impossible to achieve everything without bruises and contusions. Mercedes is horrified and screams at Irenia that this is impossible. Irenia and Mercedes start arguing with each other. Mercedes begins to accuse Irenia of wanting to make a laughingstock out of the prince. Mercedes thinks that everyone will laugh at Caesar. Irenia asks Mercedes to pull herself together. Caesar listens to them and makes a serious decision. Mercedes decides to be more decisive. She becomes enraged and tells Irenia that she will not allow this to happen. Irenia realizes that Mercedes is exaggerating. There is some kind of attachment between Mercedes and the prince. However, Mercedes' motherly love distorts everything. After Caesar's curse was revealed, he was shunned. Caesar's mother committed suicide, and Mercedes took over the care of the prince. But she has bipolar personality disorder. Looking at Caesar, Irenia understands that Mercedes is to blame for his childishness. Irenia thinks that Mercedes is going too far. Irenia informs her that her help will not be needed in the future. Mercedes is shocked by what Irenia said. Irenia orders Mercedes to leave the palace. Mercedes is shocked by what Irenia decided to do to her. Caesar is shocked that Irenia calls Mercedes out of the palace. Irenia orders Mercedes not to interfere in Caesar's affairs in the future. In the evening, at sunset, Irenia rests with Caesar in the living room. Irenia notes that Caesar destroyed as many as 17 forks. Irenia strokes the peaceful Caesar and tells him that he needs to rest. Irenia notices that Mercedes has not returned. Mercedes ran out of the dining room and never returned. Irenia believes that the decision regarding Mercedes is correct. Irenia decides to talk to Caesar. Caesar is surprised when Irenia asks him if he misses Mercedes. Irenia doesn't know whether Caesar is pleased or not. Irenia extends her hands to Caesar. Irenia says that there is no time and she will avoid the servants. Caesar takes her hand and goes wild right before our eyes. We are shown deep night, the moon illuminating the moonless starry sky. Irenia sits on the bed and cannot sleep. Irenia realizes that the wound on her leg has become more noticeable. Irenia realizes that the wound on her leg has become more noticeable. For some reason, Caesar calms down when he sees her blood. Therefore, it is necessary to periodically feed him blood to calm him down. The only problem is that you can't show him the wounds. Caesar pounced on the wound on her leg. Caesar pounced on the wound on her leg. Irenia believes that her useless body has advantages. Irenia turns to the peacefully snoring Caesar. She thinks Caesar is talking in his sleep. Irenia does not believe that the person in front of her is the cursed prince. Her fragile and gentle hand reaches out to Caesar's curls. Irenia remembers how she fought back against Mercedes. Irenia remembers how she fought back against Mercedes. Irenia believes that Caesar's treatment was cruel from the very beginning. Caesar deserves to be in a calmer environment. Irenia decides to wake up Caesar, and her hands reach out to him. Irenia straightens the blanket on Caesar's bed. At this time, Mercedes locks herself in the storage room. The mysterious figure tells Mercedes that she raised the prince with her own hands. Mercedes remembers the Empress's last moments and the promise she made to her. She decides to kill Irenia because she believes that Caesar is her child, and only hers. Purple shoes click their heels on the tiled floor. Giovanetta Flores, dressed in a horse-riding costume, calls out to her mother. She rudely asks her mother if Irenia is still alive. Irenia's stepmother tells her not to scream. Giovanetta is furious. She has already chosen a dress and hat for Irenia's funeral. Celestine Flores asks her daughter not to scream, otherwise rumors will spread among the servants. The stepmother says that Irenia has a more stubborn side. Celestine recalls that Irenia didn't even make a sound when she was beaten. Irenia has always been distinguished by her strength of spirit and perseverance. Even when teachers were hired with corporal punishment, Irenia studied diligently. The stepmother lifts her teacup and says that she is not writing off Giovanetta. The stepmother tells her that Giovanetta should prepare to leave for the palace, and Caesar will be hers. We are shown the daughter of Count Peregrino, who does not want to marry Caesar. She wants to run away from Caesar and away from the castle. She dies from bleeding wounds and does not understand how she deserved the punishment of marrying Caesar. She sees Caesar's wild eyes before he dies. Irenia is awakened by Caesar's gentle voice. She coughs and gets up in bed at night. Irenia saw the memories of the previous princess in her dream. Caesar wipes the tears from Irenia's cheeks after sleep. Caesar asks Irenia in a gentle voice to wake up. Irenia realizes that it was all a dream and looks at Caesar. Irenia had difficulty breathing and was in shock from what she saw in her dream. Caesar's powerful hand reaches out to Irenia to calm her down. Caesar pats Irenia on the head and asks her to calm down. Irenia tells Caesar that she is awake and everything is fine. Irenia says that everything is fine and smiles. She looks at Caesar and wonders why she had such a dream. Caesar suddenly says that all is clear. Irenea is puzzled by what he means. Caesar sits on his knees before Irene. His hands reach out to Irenea's surprised face. Caesar embraces Irenea and holds her close to him. Irenea doesn't understand what Caesar is doing with his clawed paw. Caesar refers to her lavender scent, and Irenea smiles. Irenea suddenly realizes that Caesar smells of lavender. Caesar tells her that he washed himself and that he is a good boy. Irenea is embarrassed by the degradation of our Caesar, who washed himself. She is happy for him, as if he were a baby taking his first steps. Caesar slyly tells her that she should pet him. Caesar slyly tells her that she should pet him. Caesar is surprised that Irenea is silent. Irenea takes his face in her hands and kisses him. Caesar gently pulls away from Irenea. He liked the kiss. Irenea tells him that this is a fashionable greeting in the capital. Irenea suddenly realizes that she did something wrong. Caesar kisses Irenea on the cheek, and she is embarrassed. Irenea is surprised. Did Caesar really greet her like that? Caesar innocently asks her if she likes the kiss. Who wouldn't like a man's kiss? Irenea replies that she likes the kiss. Irenea and Caesar are sitting on the bed and talking about kissing. Autumn is coming, and a light breeze is swaying the trees. Delphine comes to Irenea, and she asks Delphine for something. Irenea shocks Delphine by asking her about Caesar's previous brides. Irenea asks Delphine to answer her honestly. Delphine says she knew everyone personally and saw how they behaved. 4 brides lived in this palace, and they had problems with Madame Aranso. The daughter of the Marquis of Perengiriu actually created a scandal for Mrs. Aranso. Irenea says that she heard something about this family, but she can't remember. Peregrino's only daughter did not want to marry the prince. Irenea realizes that the situation that Delphine described corresponds to the dream. Irenea wonders how this can even be possible. Irenea tells Delphine that everything is fine. Delphine asks if she can light some incense for Irenea. Irenea realizes that thanks to the dream, she began to solve crimes, like with Delphine. Irenea shocks Delphine by asking if she knows how Countess Peregrino died. Delphine starts mumbling that she doesn't know anything about it. The woman was killed by the hand of the Empress. Irenea asks Delphine if it is true that Caesar killed the girl. It is true that Caesar has aggression towards others. The Caesar Irenea has seen so far is not such a monster. Irenea asks Delphine directly whether Caesar killed a man. Delphine justifies herself by saying that she is so pathetic that she cannot know. Irenea asks Delphine not to pay attention to someone like her. Irenea and Delphine are standing in the living room, and there is silence between them. Irenea asks how Mrs. Aranso is doing. Delphine tells her that Mrs. Aranso did not leave the room. Irenea asks who this Mrs. Aranso is. Delphine tells her that the lady loved Caesar very much. Delphine herself believes that Mercedes was overprotective of Caesar. Irenea thanks the maid for telling her. The sunlight caresses the trees, and the weather is fine. Irenea walks down the alley and calls Caesar by name. Suddenly, a bright light illuminates the area, and Irenea winces from the light. Irenea's eyes see a tree and something else. Irenea sees the roof of the tower and Caesar sitting on it. Irenea shouts to Caesar that what he has planned is dangerous. Caesar's feet slip on the tiles of the tower. Irenea closes her eyes in horror. She does not want to see Caesar die. Irenea hears the rustling of leaves and opens her eyes in horror. Irenea thinks that her beloved and degrading husband is dead. But Caesar comes to her alive and unharmed. Caesar, as if nothing had happened, asks Irenea if everything is okay. Irenea is shocked by what is happening. Irenea sits down on the ground in shock, and Caesar is surprised. Caesar asks Irenea in surprise if everything is okay. Irenea shouts at Caesar that he is a fool, and he is surprised. Irenea asks him if he did it to scare her. Caesar tells Irenea that he is fine. Irenea scolds Caesar for frightening her so. Caesar tells her that everything is fine. Irenea cries and, like in typical anime, calls him a fool. Caesar resembles a whipped dog and says that he will not do it again. We are shown the high tower from which Caesar jumped. Irenea looks at the tower and wonders how he could jump from such a height. Irenea wonders where the guards have been all this time. Irenea sees guards approaching her. One of the guards greets Irenea. Irenea points to the tower and menacingly asks if they know about Caesar's deed. Irenea points to the tower and menacingly asks if they know about Caesar's deed. Irenea points to the tower and menacingly asks if they know about Caesar's deed. Irenea asks menacingly if they know what happened. The guard rudely tells her that he doesn't understand what she's talking about. The guard asks what happened here anyway. The guards tell Irenia that they are glad nothing happened. Irenia clenches her hand into a fist and says that this is terrible. Irenia asks menacingly if they don't know what happened. The guards begin to laugh at Irenia. The guards ask who she will report to, and Irenia says the Empress. The guards tell her that everything is for the sake of everything being good. The guard tells Irenia that nothing will happen until the prince reports everything to the Empress. The guard says that it is unlikely that the prince will be able to complain to the Empress. Irenia shouts at them. How dare they speak to her like that? The guard laughs. The prince barely knows the Empress. Irenia is struck by the fact that if she disappeared, no one would care. Irenia is horrified. She looks at him with disgust. Irenia understands that she herself means nothing to the palace. According to the guards, the cursed prince will be the scapegoat for Irenia's disappearance. Irenia realizes that as a princess, she means nothing. The guards say that it would be best for the princess to disappear. The guards say it would be better to harm the princess. One of the guards shouts at his captain, who wants to harm the princess. Irenia is scared. Caesar wants to do something to the guard. Caesar grabs the guard by the chest and lifts him up. The captain wheezes for Caesar to let him go. Irenia shouts at Caesar to stop. A crowd of guards pounces on Caesar from behind. Caesar now resembles a dragon with his red eyes. Irenia realizes that he has fallen under the dragon's curse. Irenia believes that she must stop the dragon. She screams at the guards who attacked Caesar. Irenia realizes that she must intervene. Irenia realizes that she must intervene. Irenia shouts in a commanding tone for Caesar to stop. Irenia shouts in a commanding tone for Caesar to stop. She asks Caesar to stop, as he may become a monster prince. She asks Caesar to stop, as he may become a monster prince. Caesar seems to hear her through the veil of the curse. The guard falls, thrown back by Caesar. The captain of the guard shouts at Irenia, and she asks Caesar to leave. The captain is dragged away from Caesar. Irenia hugs Caesar and cries. She wouldn't want it to end like this. Irenia hugs Caesar and asks him not to do it again. Caesar grabs Irenia by the shoulders and pulls her close to him. Irenia looks at Caesar in surprise. She didn't expect this. Irenia thinks that Caesar has calmed down a little. Irenia thanks Caesar for standing up for her. Caesar seems surprised in front of Irenia. Irenia sincerely thanks Caesar for intervening. She tells a surprised Caesar that attacking people is not allowed. Irenia understands that he will not accept the answer that this cannot be done. Irenia asks not to harm people, even for her sake. Caesar looks surprised. He stood up for her like a normal guy, not a degenerate fool. Caesar tells her that the girl was in pain and he couldn't watch. Irenia is surprised. She didn't expect this from Caesar. She asks Caesar not to do this for her anymore. Caesar tells her that everything that happened is not good. Irenia realizes that Caesar is angry because she was hurt. Caesar says that the captain of the guard is a bad man. Irenia remembers that there was no guy who would risk so much for her. Irenia asks Caesar not to take risks, so as not to get into trouble. Caesar becomes like a dog who obeys Irenaeus. Irenia thinks Caesar is very cute now. She doesn't understand how she can scold such a nice guy with the brain of a child. Irenia and Caesar look at each other with loving glances. After that incident, the chief of the guard disappeared without a trace. Irenia remembers how the guards attacked Caesar. Irenia decides to continue teaching Caesar. Irenia decides to continue teaching Caesar. Caesar sits in the library in front of word cards. Caesar doesn't understand what she wants to teach him. If Caesar is going to attend the banquet, he needs to learn to speak properly. Caesar looks at the globe with pleasure. Irenia shows Caesar cards with words. The card she is holding has a picture of a dog on it. Caesar says he is not interested in the dog. Then Irenia shows him a card with a cat. But Caesar doesn't seem to like the cards she shows. Irenia points to the cards to spell out Caesar's name. Irenia points to one of the cards that can be used to spell out her name. Caesar became interested because everything here was connected with Irenia. Caesar points to a card with the hieroglyph for Ren's name. Irenia is glad that Caesar succeeded. Caesar tells her that this is all he knows. He points to cards with the words girl, beautiful, cake. Irenia is glad that Caesar is doing well with the cards. Irenia believes that Caesar succeeded. Caesar asks what he should do next. Irenia is amazed by his desire to learn. Caesar is successful in working on the cards. Caesar now writes letters more confidently than he should. Irenia suggests that Caesar write something on paper. She places a pen in his palm to write. Irenia tells Caesar to hold his pen at an angle. Caesar sits patiently and writes something on paper. Later, Caesar puts the letter aside. Irenia is amazed. Caesar is doing well. This is the level of writing that is needed. Irenia understands that she couldn't think of it before. Ciri was born as the very first candidate for the throne, and although his mind is now clouded, knowledge lies dormant somewhere deep within him. Caesar suddenly looks at Ren, who has gone somewhere. Irenia hugs Caesar very tenderly. Caesar smiles. He is glad that he is succeeding. Irenia wonders what kind of curse this is on Caesar. Caesar looks at Irenia with confusion. All that is known about Caesar's curse is a legend passed down from generation to generation. The mad dragon Tiegros was rampaging through Assetria, and King Arcangelo defeated him. An evil dragon cast a curse that is passed on through blood, and was passed on to the good-natured Caesar. Irenia realizes that many years passed before the spell reached Caesar. Caesar is not a man to be treated with liberty. Irenia reads the tale of the ugly duckling to Caesar. The book says that one of the eggs was too big. The tale of the ugly duckling is an allusion to Caesar. The tale of the ugly duckling is an allusion to Caesar. Caesar remembers how his own mother rejected him. Caesar remembers how his own mother rejected him. He remembers how his subjects whispered behind his back about his curse. The ugly duckling fell into despair because of his dissimilarity to others. The prince remembers how all the brides refused to be with him, how one of the brides ran away from him, thinking that she would be saved, how she stopped in front of the pond, looking at herself. Something was reflected in the pond, and the girl began to look closely. She wondered what she was going to do. She can't just die by drowning in a pond. The princess wanted to return, but someone's figure pushed her into the lake. She began to desperately call for help, since she cannot swim. Someone's paw grabbed her by the hair on her head. The mysterious figure said that she had enough of struggling, and it was time to die. The woman begins to drown in the pond, sinking to the very bottom. Irenia wakes up with screams of horror from Caesar's voice. Caesar woke up Irenia, and she realizes that she saw someone's life. Irenia can't remember how many times she had nightmares. Sometimes in her nightmares, she is suffocated by a pillow. Sometimes in her nightmares, she is poisoned with sweets. Irenia realizes that she is dreaming about the prince's candidates for marriage before her. She thinks she'll go crazy from these nightmares. Irenia responds to her name when Caesar calls her. Caesar presses himself against Irenia and kisses her on the cheek. Irenia tells Caesar that she is fine. Irenia is grateful to Caesar for waking her up. Caesar always comes to wake up Irenia. Irene asks Caesar how he knows that she is having nightmares. Caesar is taken aback by her direct question about the nightmares. He says that he just knows everything about her nightmares. Irenia is surprised that Caesar simply knows about the nightmares. Irenia falls onto the bed and believes that Caesar just knows. Irenia realizes that her dreams are becoming more and more realistic. They are similar to that dream when she dreamed that someone stole the treasure. Irenia realizes that in her dreams she sees the memories of previous brides who have died. Irenia believes that none of them deserved such a fate. According to Irenia, everyone accused Caesar of the curse. Irenia wonders if there is anyone in the palace who knows about the girls. It dawns on Irenia that there is a witness, and this witness is Caesar, who sits in front of her. Irenia asks Caesar directly about the dead girls. Irenia asks Caesar directly about the dead girls. Caesar asks her in surprise about the girls. He doesn't know that they died. Irenia cannot understand whether Caesar understands the meaning of the words or not. Irenia says that the prince did something very bad. Caesar begins to remember the splash in the water. Yenia confirms about the splash in the water and the girl in the lake. Cyr recalls the splashes in the water, and Irenia asks him to continue. Instead, Caesar begins quoting the tale of the ugly duckling. Irenia looks at Caesar with confusion. Caesar good-naturedly imitates the sounds of ducklings quacking. Irenia repeats after him the tale of the ugly duckling and the ducklings. Irenia had been reading him a lot of books lately, but she didn't expect any side effects. Caesar tells her that he doesn't understand why he was born so ugly. Irenia asks Caesar if he likes this story. Caesar sits and remains silent, reminding her of a wolf. Irenia tells Caesar that he is very persistent. She turns on the lamp, and it begins to shine in the darkness of the room. Irenia continues to read about the ugly duckling. Suddenly, Caesar stops her reading. He asks Irenia what love is, and she is embarrassed. Caesar looks very surprised and repeats his question. Irenia doesn't even know what to say to him about this. Irenia answers him that love is when someone likes you. Caesar says that this is how he likes Ren. Irenia says that it is true, and she likes Caesar too. Suddenly, Caesar becomes serious again. Caesar simply declares to Irenia that he loves her. Irenia is surprised by what Caesar said. Caesar takes a strand of her hair in his hands and says that he loves her. Irenia decides to remain calm. Because Caesar says this completely innocently, she tells Caesar, blushing, that she loves him too. Caesar smiles at the girl with his innocent smile. Irenia says that she will continue reading, and Caesar starts talking about the fruit of love. Irenia seems surprised by Caesar's words. She says that the fruit of the duck's love was eggs. Caesar innocently asks when Irenia will lay eggs. Irenia looks surprised, as do I at this moment. Irenia doesn't understand what Caesar is talking about, and he insists on eggs. He points to the eggs in the book and says that they are the fruit of love. He asks Irenia to take them down as soon as possible. Irenia is shocked by Caesar's antics regarding the eggs. Irenia doesn't know how to explain to Caesar about eggs and children. She begins to explain to Caesar where children come from, but Caesar doesn't listen. He wants to know how much Ren can bear. Caesar innocently asks how eggs are laid. Irenia doesn't know what to say to Caesar's question. Caesar looks at Irenia with interest and waits for her answer. Irenia understands that she cannot simply explain some things. Irenia blurts out something about hands, and Caesar asks again in surprise. Irenia says that if you hold hands, the eggs will appear after sleep. Caesar's clawed paw takes Irenia's hand in its palm. Irenia believes that it would be cruel to destroy Caesar's reality with stories about children. That asshole Caesar falls asleep like nothing happened, waiting for the eggs to appear. Irenia lies next to Caesar, and she is not sure that she did the right thing. At this time, the best jewelry is on display in the jewelry store. Giovanetta's loud voice echoes throughout the shop as she demands more jewelry. Giovanetta says that all the jewelry here is rather banal. The jeweler flatters Giovanetta and her mother that they are beautiful, but he distracts his stepmother with stories that Irenia will become the prince's wife. One of the jewels flies straight at the jeweler. The jeweler tries to get out of it by saying that Giovanetta is the best. Irenia's stepmother says that her daughter will still need a better dress. They begin to sew a dress for Giovanetta and prepare her to be a companion in the palace. Caesar innocently asks when Irenia will lay eggs. Irenia is surprised by Caesar's sudden question. They are overheard by a curious Delphine, who is in shock. She thinks that Irenia and Caesar have a good relationship and feels awkward about what she imagined. Irenia asks Delphine to wait and shouts that everything is wrong. Irenia scolds Caesar that children should be discussed in private. Caesar is surprised why he can't talk about children. Irenia says that such questions should be kept secret. Caesar is surprised. Is this really true? Ever since they got together, Caesar has been talking about eggs. Irenia can't believe that he turned out to be so persistent. Caesar asks if he should hold her hand more. Irenia blushes. She didn't know that Caesar was so serious. Irenia says they will do it secretly. The next morning, Irenia asks to buy eggs. The maids actively discuss the life of Irenia and the prince. They don't understand how she could share a bed with a beast. They whisper and slowly creep into their bedroom. Mercedes hears all this and is furious. Mercedes hears all this and is furious. Meanwhile, Irenia wants to teach the prince something. She shyly asks Caesar to come to her. Caesar looks at her in surprise and comes closer. Irenia announces to Caesar that she has a gift for him. Caesar asks what she has prepared for him. He is glad that Irenia has prepared something good for him. Irenia looks confused, but she decides to tell him. She hands him a fresh egg on a handkerchief. Irenia, blushing, lies that she laid an egg. Caesar looks shocked as he looks at the egg. He innocently asks her if this is the fruit of their love. Irenia says yes and doesn't understand why he needs it. Caesar looks inspired as he looks at the egg. He joyfully asks when Irenia managed to give birth to him. Early in the morning, she asked Delphine to buy an egg. Caesar asks Irenia with concern if she is having a hard time. Irenia lies when she says it's nothing. Caesar tells Irenia that she is simply amazing. He looks at the egg with hope and asks what will hatch from it. Irenia would also like to know this, since she asked for a chicken egg. Irenia suggests that he take up reading a book, but Caesar tells her that he needs to hatch the egg. He tells Irenia that he will be very careful. Caesar drags fabric to make a nest for the egg. Irenia is horrified. What nest is Caesar talking about? Caesar, covered with a blanket, is determined to hatch the egg. He proudly declares to Irenia that he must hatch the egg. Irenia tells him that if he becomes uncomfortable, he can climb into her bed. Night falls and the moon lights up the sky. Caesar sits patiently on an egg by Irenia's bed. He believes that he needs to hatch the egg very carefully. Caesar believes that the egg will protect Ren. Irenia wakes up and stretches sweetly in bed. Irenia notes that Caesar is not around. Suddenly, her gaze turns to Caesar. She's in shock. She didn't expect him to sit up all night. Caesar looks tired. He hasn't slept all night. Irenia is horrified. Caesar has not slept all night. Caesar addresses Irenia in a gentle voice. He holds out the egg to Irenia and tells her to look. Irenia notices the egg in his powerful hands. The shell of the egg begins to hatch. Irenia is shocked by Caesar's work regarding the egg. Caesar looks pleased, looking at the egg with tenderness. The egg cracks more and more. The shell inside it cracks with unexpected force. The egg even glows in Caesar's hands, and Irenia looks at it in surprise. Irenia finds it strange that light is pouring out of the egg. Irenia closes her eyes tightly and looks at the egg. The egg cracked in Caesar's hands, revealing a chick. The egg cracked, and a charming chick was revealed to the world. Irenia looks at the egg in shock, and Caesar even more so. Irenia is surprised by what happened in the egg. She doesn't understand what she should do with the chick. Caesar calls her affectionately by name. He holds the chick in his arms and says that it is the fruit of their love. Irenia decides to play along with him so as not to destroy Caesar's innocent world. The wood is crackling in the fireplace and the fire is burning. The chick sits on a towel and warms itself. Irenia looks at the chick with Caesar and finds it cute. She strokes the chick's head and asks Caesar what they should do with it. She asks Caesar if he knows how to raise chicks. Caesar asks her about the splash in the water. Irenia realizes that she is a complete fool for trusting Caesar. Suddenly, someone interrupts their idyll with the chick. In front of them is a shocked Delphine who asks them about the chick. She is shocked and says that this is yesterday's egg. Caesar stubbornly assures her that the chick is the fruit of his love with Irenia. Delphine doesn't know what to say, and silence falls. Delphine asks Irenia how something hatched from an egg, and Irenia tells her that she has no idea. Delphine assumed that Caesar would eat the egg raw. Irenia asks if chicks hatch, and she says that usually they don't. Caesar sits with the chick and is happy that it was born. The chick begins to crawl back and forth over Caesar. Irenia asks Delphine if the chicks can fly. The chick jumps on Caesar's head and starts squeaking. Irenia also doesn't know what kind of chick it is. At this time, Giovanetta arrives at Cornelia's greenhouse. Giovanetta pays her respects to Cornelia. Cornelia is glad to see Giovanetta and fans herself. Cornelia asks Giovanetta if she is the sister of the crown princess. She replies that she will do everything possible to satisfy Her Majesty. Cornelia notices that Giovanetta is not like her older, gentle sister. Giovanetta is horrified. Could it be that Irenia said something to the Empress? Cornelia tells Giovanetta about the bet with Irenia. Cornelia tells Giovanetta about the bet with Irenia. Giovanetta cries, "How could Irenia behave like that with Her Highness?" She doesn't believe that Irenia could do something like that. Cornelia says that Giovanetta is wiser than her sister and asks her if she has any ideas about the prince and Irenia. Giovanetta slyly asks if she is the Empress's person and vows to teach Irenia a lesson. We are shown a garden full of people. We are shown a garden full of people. Irenia, Caesar, and the chick sit on the lawn and admire the view. Irenia realizes that she did not keep her promise to the Empress. She remembers how Cornelia gave her time until the summer banquet. Irenia looks at the chick and Caesar. Caesar is playing with the chick and looks very stable. Caesar feeds the chick a worm, and Irenia thinks about what to do. Irenia is grateful to Caesar when he places a worm on her stick for her to feed the chick. The chick was named Ab, and he eats the treat with pleasure. Ab is short for Abraxas, which is what Caesar named the chick. Irenia thinks that the chick looks quite smart. Caesar is surprised. He didn't think that the bird was smart. Abraxas goes to the toilet by himself, follows Irenia and Caesar, and hides from the others. Irenia believes that Abraxas understands human speech. Suddenly, a servant approaches them. Delphine informs her that they have a guest in the Malachite palace. Irenia is surprised who would look for her. The shadows approach Irenia and Caesar with the chick. Irenia is shocked. Here is someone she didn't expect to see. Giovanetta appears before her as if nothing had happened. Giovanetta appears before her as if nothing had happened. Irenia remembers how she was rejected by everyone as a child. The only one who showed interest in her was Giovanetta. Irenia was then surprised that she was looking at her. Her hands were clenching and unclenching, and she was covered in dirt. Giovanetta can't believe that the dirty girl in front of her is her sister. Irenia tries to address Giovanetta politely. She tells little Giovanetta that she is beautiful and that she is surprised. Giovanetta looks at her sister with all her might. Giovanetta took care of her every day. She fed Irenia delicious food. Giovanetta couldn't understand how Irenea could enjoy simple food. Thanks to Giovanetta, Irenea experienced only positive emotions. But Giovanetta's attitude towards her gradually changed. Everything changed because of the new teacher and his corporal punishment for Irenea. Irenea tried her best to win back Giovanetta's favor. Giovanetta is surprised by Irenea's actions. She was especially surprised that Irenea imitated her and even wore her favorite dress. Irenea says that the dress suits her perfectly, and she wanted to show it. Giovanetta looks crazy and asks why she is wearing a dress. Irenea is surprised, because Giovanetta gave it to her. Giovanetta screams that the dress is not hers and demands that she take it off. In the end, Irenea never knew that she had offended Giovanetta. Since then, Giovanetta has been doing nasty things to her, even pushing her down the stairs. Irenea asks Giovanetta what all this means. She innocently says what Irenea says to her in response. Giovanetta pretends to be worried about Irenea, since she hasn't contacted anyone since arriving at the palace.